for some advice on just some simple builds and a little bit more in depth than I have done in the past. You're going to hear in the background my mother-in-law and my baby because guess what? Life. Anyway, so right here we're looking at one of my newer adults. I've got 10 characters. This one's probably a week old, week or two. So still working on reputations as you see here. I mean, only tier 4 on most. So still working on a couple items from rep. But in this simple build, I'm going with the mixed beam setup to take advantage of some set bonuses and just because, well, funsies. So we got here a Nausicaan Disruptor set, and again, so that's the beam, the torp, and where is it? Science console over here. And that's from the Lucari mission. And as you look at it here, set bonuses are pretty good. Power transfer rate, boost to disruptor damage. You get over here another further boost at the 3-piece. So you're getting 26.6 disruptor damage, some hull pen, disruptor net increase. It does some decent damage. It's not amazing. But overall, just from using this 3-piece, if you're using only disruptors, it's a pretty large. It's like having 2 extra tactical slots for your character. So it's definitely the 3-piece Nausicaan set. If you're using disruptors, I cannot recommend it enough. Prolonged engagement phaser beam array. It's there because, again, this is a build that I put together as I was leveling. This is a pretty good phaser beam array. It stacks damage as the longer you're in combat against something. So against longer lived targets, it definitely hits pretty hard. This is a filler. This will eventually become the Terran reputation beam array when I hit rank 4 with Terran. And that is, the Terran beam is the hardest hitting beam in the game. So really, I'm going to have mostly disruptors up front. I'll probably, instead of this prolonged engagement, I do intend to swap that out with the experimental Romulan plasma beam array, because I'm playing a Romulan, and why not? And I'm also intending to get the 2-piece bonus from the Romulan set. So you can see here under my science console, so I'm using the Romulan console. And under the 2-piece, I get 10% bonus plasma damage and some extra EPS. Using Colony Deflector, the Colony Crit with Drain X and EPS and Shield and Hull Cap. So basically, the higher your hull, the higher your crit chance and crit severity. So it's pretty pretty effective for this build because I'm running a Miracle Worker ship on an Engineer. So it's not hard to be at full health. I can heal up from anything basically. I'm using the 2-piece from the Bajor Defense set. From the latest featured episode. Reason being, as you look at the 2-piece bonus, what do we have here? Oh, wait. Phaser, Disruptor, and Plasma damage bonuses. So I'm getting 17.8% to basically every single weapon type I'm using on this build. So it helps to make up for the fact that I'm running, instead of a focused, Disruptor console, I'm running a beam console. So I'm not getting quite as much bonus damage per beam, but since I'm getting the 17.8 from the 2-piece, it definitely makes up for the overall. Plus you add in the set bonuses, etc. Using the Elite Fleet Thrawn Infused Singularity Core, so that's weapon power goes to shields, you get the Singularity Overcharge is active, you get 20% crit severity, and you get the Singularity Weapons Capacitor, so it drains your Singularity power to give you more weapons power. So overall, definitely one of the best cores you can get. And then again, the shields from the Bajor set. In the back, I'm running Kinetic Cutting Beam, House Martok Disruptor for the set bonus. So as you look here, set bonus, 2-piece, gives you an extra 2.5% crit chance, 15 accuracy. You don't need accuracy for PvE at all, but a little extra helps for PvP. And then the other, I'm running a Plasma Beam. So I at least have 2 plasma weapons in this Romulan, so overall the effect will be a little bit like it's going to be a Romulan ship. I was originally intending to have this a full plasma ship. Unfortunately, there's just not enough sets to boost plasma damage to really get the good DPS out of it. There's nothing wrong with it. You'll probably still easily be able to do 40, 50,000 DPS if I was just running all Romulan Reputation Plasma or Corrosive Plasma, using the Romulan set Torpedo, and using the Kinetic Cutting Beam, a Omni Plasma, and then just 2 Plasma Beams in the back. You'd probably still do pretty decent damage. Easily probably still hit 100k. But again, this build for me was mostly about using sets, looking for quest sets, rep sets, etc., and seeing how effective those would actually work together. And I'm finding that they're actually working very well. So again, with the Miracle Worker ship, I can have 5 tac consoles. So I've got 4 epic beam locators to increase crit chance and beam damage. The 5th up here, I haven't epicked it yet. It's only at ultra rare. But the difference is not huge. It's there, 1.8, 1.9, so it's 0.1% crit chance change, and something like let's see, 31.2, 32.8, so 1.6 beam damage. That's pretty large, but I can live with that. Engineering consoles, I'm using this, the Conductive RCS Accelerator Res All. Reason being, this build is a tank slash DPS. So to fill that role, you need some resistance and some abilities to survive incoming damage. So that's why I went with Miracle Worker Specialization. We'll go into that later. But you can see on this console, I get plus 25 all damage resistance, plus 50% turn rate, which is good because the Miracle Worker ships aren't exactly escorts. And then when I heal, I get shield resistance for 15 seconds, plus another 20% turn rate. And that can occur every 30 seconds. So, because again, Engineer, Miracle Worker ship, I'm constantly healing, so it's up every 30 seconds. The next one I'm using comes with the Miracle Worker 3-piece. I believe this one's off the Engineering variant. It's plus 20 all damage rating versus exotic damage. The bonus experience, really, who cares? That helps a little bit, getting skill points, but that's a useless bonus, really. The main reason I'm using it here is a delayed causality plating. Bolt will probably critique my pronunciation there. The reason I'm using it is after 6 seconds, basically it prevents all damage for 6 seconds. So in an oh crap situation where you've got aggro from absolutely everything on the map, or you're in PvP and someone's alpha striking you, pressing that gives you 6 seconds to heal up, and then after the 6 seconds, you only get 25% of the prevented damage, and it's done over 12 seconds. One hazard emitter will cover pretty much everything. But even better, you get 30% firing cycle haste for energy weapons for 6 seconds. So you don't take any damage, you're hitting like a truck, and it gives you a chance to heal up and repair any damage you got done to you. Then the assimilated console for the Borg 2-piece, which 2.5 chance for firing engineer weapons. You get the Omega Weapon Amplifier, which gives you plus 10 weapon power, plus 500 weapon power during resistance, and minus 500% weapon power cost. I don't think I need to explain why that's a good thing. And also the kinetic cutting beam hits very hard. It's a 360 weapon, it's kinetic damage, and it's very useful. And then again, for the Martok 2-piece, I'm using the Defense Configuration Console, which gives you more turn rate, engine power, shield power, hull hit points, and shield capacity. Then again, the Romulan set, I'm using this. I'm using bioneural infusion circuits. Now, if I'm running something like an ISA, I might switch that out with... Where is it? The tachyokinetic converter. I don't know if I have it in my bag. It doesn't look like it. Over here. I might switch it out with this, just to get more crit chance, more crit severity, and turn rate, because in an ISA I'm not taking that much damage. But I will use this in the majority of my runs because it does help with tanking. More hull capacity, control expertise, and yeah, more crit severity. This character, I don't think, let me go into sector space real quick. Should have been there when I started this video, but again, when you have a baby, you do things when you can. Miracle Worker ship, very pretty. So as you look at the stats, in sector space, just around our space dock, I'm running 35.6% crit chance, 140.8 crit severity, and then whenever I apply a heal, it goes up to 37.6 crit chance, and that's from Miracle Worker. And then with everything running, all bonuses and everything, basically you sit at 37, and most of my resists sit around 60 to 70. And then with some of the traits, it'll boost up to almost 100% resist on quite a few items. Again, if I'm running Hive Space Elite, I might swap a console out for neutronium hull plating, Trillium D hull plating. I might throw on the Protomatter Field Projector. What I would do is I usually remove, if it's something like a Hull Space Elite and a Pug, I would remove this tactical console from my universal, and I would put in the protomatter. Again, because you can't DPS when you're dead. So a little help from hull restoration and that huge heal from that can be very handy. Skill-wise, this is pretty much the same skill tree I use on most of my characters. A little altered because there's no pets with this ship, and it's an engineer. So, using hull restoration, 2 points in that, 1 in capacity, 1 point in shield capacity, maxing out most of the tactical, getting improved DPS flow, impulse expertise, drain expertise, ablative plating, energized hull plating. I only got 2 points here because, again, I'm using a Romulan, so getting crit chance is not an issue. And with most tunes now, crit chance isn't an issue. Now there's crit severity. So getting up to good numbers isn't really difficult. Over here I got 1 point in EPG just because it helps with some of the plasma burn and some of the special effects you'll get from a ship. Advanced long-range targeting sensors is basically a must unless you're in an escort and can really stay close to your target. Advanced hull penetration, shield penetration, and then again going 3 points in here. Shows frenzied assault, frenzied reactions, so it gets me a chance to reduce bridge officer cooldowns with each hit, and stacking weapon damage. I would have gone with the team frenzy, but I wanted to put 1 extra point. Usually I'd only have 1 point here in shield mastery, but I want to put 1 here for shield absorption to again help with tanking. And then warp core efficiency helps to boost all subsystem power. Trait-wise, I'm running Romulan Operative. Grace Under Fire resets your Miracle Worker when you're taking damage. Beam Training, again, when I go to K13, I can increase it to plus 8% beam damage, but I don't have that money yet. Fleet Coordinator, plus 2% all damage per team member, so if you run in teams a lot, that's 10% damage. Elusive for a 10 defense rating. Operative for another 1% crit to crit severity. Projectile damage. The Nausicaan torpedo hits really hard, so it's definitely worth running this, and you can reliably get a Torp Sped 3 on most targets, even with a slower turning ship. Warp Theorist gives me a plus 10 warp core potential and EPS flow. And Context is for Kings is a tanking trait I'm running, but it's also good for damage as well if you're not taking it. Basically the way it works is if you take damage, you get plus 3 all damage resistance rating for 10 seconds, and that stacks. And then if you don't take any damage, you get 1% bonus all damage for 10 seconds. So it's definitely a good trait to have. And then combine that with Honored Dead, you definitely get some really high resistance rating from taking damage. And again, taking damage, I'm using redirecting arrays, which is from the Miracle Worker ship, the tactical variant. It extends the duration of fire at will. This is from the Romulan, I think it's the Mogai? Excuse me, the Tier 6 capital ship, the supercharged weapons from the Scimitar. So this gives you, if you fire a torpedo, in this case my Nausicaan, I get plus 10% damage for 20 seconds, and then crit chance and crit severity. And emergency weapon cycle. Again, every time you activate emergency weapon, power to weapons, it increases the haste to your weapons by 20% and minus 50% weapon cost. Out of the rep for space, I don't have them all unlocked yet, but I'm using crit chance, crit severity, penetration, and bonus all damage resistance rating. Skill-wise, for specializations, like I said, I'm running strategist as my secondary. Again, I don't have enough points to get the ground portion done yet. So, eventually this will get unlocked, but I focused over here on this side for counteroffensive and diversionary. And then Miracle Worker. Go with Embolden. Basically, the Miracle Worker spec is very good for if you're healing yourself. Because as you're getting incoming damage and you're healing yourself, it boosts your resistance, it boosts your damage output, boosts your crit chance. It's just straight up, if you're going to be running something that's going to be running threatening stance, it's a good choice. Station-wise, Chemosite Licensed Weaponry 1, Attack Pattern Beta 1, Firewall 3, Attack Team, Delta 1. I like running on a tanking ship, Delta 1 and Beta 1. I find they cycle together really well to keep your resistance up and to keep lowering the resistance of your target up. Torp Sped 3, Engineering Team 1, Emergency Power to Weapons 1. I will probably remove this and replace it with the emergency power to weapons one once I change something on this build I'm going to do for PvP, which is going to be the competitive rep engines. And I'll probably change the shields out for something else. I haven't figured out chosen what yet. And then going back here. Mixed Armaments Synergy 3. This is for a Miracle Worker skill. Again, you can only use it on a Miracle Worker ship. It's very good. Basically, if you activate a beam, cannon, mine, or torpedo, will cause you to gain 50% bonus damage for all other weapon types. So I try to time it right after this beam has started firing. I'll activate the ability so when my torp fires, the rest of my beams gain that 50% bonus damage. When you do it right, great damage. If you time it wrong and instead you activate a beam and it's your torpedo that gets the boost, oh well. Just means you have a really hard hitting boom and torpedo. And then narrow sensor bands I'm running here for my other Miracle Worker, which gives you plus 20 to 10% damage based on your distance from the target. Most importantly, immunity to confuse and 30 accuracy rating. Again, very useful for PvP, but also good in PvE. And then hazard emitters for my heal. So really, the only healing abilities I have on here are hazard emitters and engineering team 1. But because of the higher resistance and the fact it's an engineer that has miraculous repairs, I just don't run into any danger of dying. If I had the money and the low buy, I might go ahead and buy the Zal ship and unlock this last trait slot and have Invincible. At which point, yes, it'd be cheesy, but then I would definitely never die. So we'll take a look at one other ship real fast for you guys. Actually, we'll do two more ships. I'll look at attack. I'm sorry, I'm still fighting a cold. So, let me go up to our space dock as well so I can give you sector space stats. I keep saying sector space. It's not sector space. Alright, this is the NX refit. And I build this like a cruiser / escort. You can do it really any way you want. As you look here, I'm running Terran Task Force, because again, hardest hitting beam in the game. Nausicaan Energy Torpedo. Resonant Disruptor, that's an Iconian War mission. It's a good little beam. It's definitely worth getting. Either the beam or it comes with a turret as well you can get from that mission. Just extra damage, and it's disruptor type, so it's boosted. A crafted beam with crit damage, and pen, and the Nausicaan beam. Again, Colony Deflector. I'm running on this one the new Kara 2-piece, for the new Kara 2-piece bonus, which is, you look at that. 2-piece bonus is plus 5% bonus energy weapon damage, and any weapon disables are removed automatically. So the 2-piece bonus new Kara is very good. And then the Fleet Warp Core. Excuse me. I was going to do Fleet Warp Core, but I guess I stuck with Iconian because it was already elite. And again, nothing wrong with that. It's good Warp Core. And in the rear, we got the Martok, Kinetic Cutting Beam. I am running the Voice of the Prophets. If you are lucky enough to get the Bajoran Escort from the event, it's a great weapon. Good single target damage, good AoE damage. Probably the best experimental weapon in the game right now. Then after that would be the one from the Allied Escorts, the Railgun. And then the Flak Cannon from Competitive Rep. Then Martok Console, Simulated. I'm using this for the 2-piece bonus, but it's got 3.6 weapon power setting and auxiliary, half a second off a torpedo recharge, and the 2-piece bonus is 13.3% projectile weapon damage bonus. And that's from Terran Rep. Tacky Converter, Bioneural, Nausicaan Siphon Capacitor. This is the one that comes off the NX. The Point Defense Bombardment Warhead gives you, again, 25% projectile damage, 1% crit chance, and the on-use ability for it is actually really good. 3 times, basically 1500 damage per second to random enemies, and then when it hits the main target, almost 13k kinetic. Very handy. And then running here again, Disruptor, Vulnerability Locators. I threw on this one here because I already had it at an Epic, and because as you'll see here under stats, I'm already at 28 and 150. So the crit chance and crit severity are very high for this tune. I'm not using any SROs. So let's see, I got here Aida, which is she an SRO? She's just a regular Romulan operative. And then Noel, I think he is also a regular Romulan operative. So the crit chance could be a little higher if I got superior Romulan operatives. But still, this, you ask anyone, this ship hits like a truck. By the way, the last build I just showed, I've got the max DPS with it is 110k in ISA. This one's max is 140k in ISA. The resists here are still relatively high. They're not as high as on the other build, but most of them are just innate ones from the skill tree. So you really kind of have to rely on using Polarized Hull to help boost that. That's why I have that as here's an ability for my oh crap. We look here for skills. So this is a very straight based. I only have 1 point in projectile, mostly because we're boosting the beams in this build and boosting crit severity through skills rather than SROs. So I needed those 2 points instead of putting them in projectile. I put them here to increase the crit and the crit severity. Otherwise, it's basically the exact same build as the other Romulan character you just saw. Specialization, Intel, and Strategist. Definitely basically the go-to for DPS right now. Trait Rise, running Beam Barrage. So the superior beam weapon training gives you 7.5. Some hull hit points. Minus threat plus crit severity, crit chance, crit severity, warp core potential, superior accurate. I last used this in PvP. For PvE, I'd probably switch that out and switch it with crippling fire, or switch it with basically anything else. You can get lots of good skills in here. Last shift effort, that could be good too if you use go down fighting. Elusive, trait rise. Emergency weapon cycle, invincible, honored dead, promise of ferocity, honored dead. I'm running honored dead in almost all my fed ships right now. Maybe losing a little bit of DPS, but the survivability bonus is just insane. It's pretty much a must. Then highly specialized, again, reduce bridge officer time whenever I use a specialist. Space rep, crit severity, armor pen. Crit chance. Rapid armor penetration increases as target health decreases. And unshaken resolve. If someone's immune, I get a little bit of armor penetration against them. Pretty useful against a Voth. And again, so here I'm using jam targeting sensors again because you're an escort. I find it's handy to have something to either reduce your threat or hide yourself, so that you're able to survive if you've gained too much threat from someone. Torp Spread 2, Chemosite-laced weapons 1, Emergency powered weapons, Reverse Shield Auxiliary, Attack Pattern Omega, good for maneuverability and also some survivability if you need it. Gives you bonus damage, but it also gives you flight speed, turn rate, and damage resistance rating. Firewall 3, Beam Overload. Now, that could easily be replaced with anything else, really, like Attack Pattern Beta 1. But I was last doing PvP, so in PvP I tend to use Beam Overload more than Fire at Will. Destabilizing Resonance Beam, I've been playing around with that. It does really good in PvE. In PvP it does not really do anything, really. But it's interesting. It's worth trying out if you get it. It's from a quest reward, so it's free. Hazard Emitters 2, Polarized Hull. So really that's about it. And then duty officers, as I said in previous, I tend to just look through my duty officers. Like let's see, I picked this guy up with the Phoenix boxes. I might make him active. Recharge evasive maneuvers when emergency powered engines is activated. I'm not using engines, so maybe I won't. Basically, I just look and say, alright, well that looks good, that looks good. Reduce bridge time. Just look at him, see one that looks good, and use it. You can build a specialized build if you're using the Ox to Bat builds where you're reducing your cooldown by using the DOF that reduces your cooldown. Then, yeah, obviously for that specific build, you'd need the DOF that does it. But otherwise, I wouldn't spend a lot of money, especially when you're first starting out, on collecting DOFs. They're great, they're good buffs. If you really want to min-max and get the most DPS, the best DOF setups are obviously ideal. But if all you're doing is playing the game to have fun, not quite needed. Why am I doing this while making a video? Alright, next character. Got Dad Brain. And last one, we'll show you a science tune. He's ugly. So, using the Surveillance Explorer, it's a Tier 6 Vesta version variant, basically. And he's running right now about 400 EPG, 236 drain, 225 control, and 150 cyber ordnance. So basically all this guy's using is coalition disruptors, particle emission plasma torpedo because that's boosted by your EPG, solidity deflector, fleet strategic deteriorating, fleet engine, temporal defense core and shield. And in the back I'm running ancient omnidirection beam array from a mission, crafted disruptor beam array, and kinetic cunning beam. Dynamic powered redistributor. If you're Fed, you have to get the ship to get this. If you're Klingon, you can just buy it. But this console is great because it gives you plus damage resistance rating, directed energy damage, and then when you use it, it also boosts your hull regen, damage resistance, and bonus damage. Simulated module. Mycelium ambush. I got this from a lockbox. It's really cheap. I'm using it mostly for the psi readiness and the fact it's got some good base stats. The Lorca maneuver is... what's the word I'm looking for? Gimmicky. Not really worth using. I use it sometimes just for funsies. But you have to be basically at max range to use it. It brings you 5 kilometers closer. You're stuck there for a little bit. And then it takes you 5 kilometers away again. I'll show it to you in a moment. It's an interesting console. Using particle field exciter, temporarily shielded data core, 2 of these exotic particle focusers, one with control, one with drain. This is the console from the multi-mission set. So I'm using that, this one, and that one. And the reason being is, no, do not discard. More details. So you look at the 4-piece, boosts the damage to all of these, 50% recharge speed, and gives me more aux power and shield capacity. And the on-use abilities for these consoles are actually pretty good. And running it with the Scimitar Scorpion fighters, they're very good. Really, I would if for most ships I use the Scorpions. If I don't use the Scorpions, it's probably because it's something larger and I'm using a frigate. Skill-wise, being a science character, I'm running Temporal Operative and Strategist. And the space skill tree, I'm using Psi Ultimate. Again, because I'm a science character, I want my scientific readiness. A lot of the similar points you're going to see here, though, for the engineering side, impulse expertise, hull plating, warp core efficiency. And the one thing of note, you'll notice in most of the builds, if you roll back, you'll see I have all my power to weapons. For this character, I have most of it to aux and some to weapons. Traits: improved gravity well, emergency weapon cycle, SIF shunt, hull healing. Buff abilities grant plus all power when at 100%, so, again, it's a psi tune, so you end up doing a lot of healing. When you do that, you get all power levels up. And Black Alert, again, been messing with it. It's kind of fun. Basically, whenever you activate this beam overload, your character does, I don't know if it'll do it in sector. I guess I have to have a target. But he'll, you'll see little copies of your ship launching torpedoes. Let's do the Lorca maneuver so you can laugh at it. So you activate it. Now I'm 5 kilometers away, and then you can do abilities, you can fire stuff while you're here. But after a couple seconds, then you're right back where you started. So it's mostly I think it's a good console for the passives. And then Space Rep. Bonus exotic damage. bonus torpedo damage, and plus to flight speed for destructible torpedoes, precision, and crit severity. Station-wise, unfortunately this ship specifically doesn't have a lot of options for psi abilities, so really I'm only running Gravity Well 2 and Subspace Vortex 3, but in the engineering-wise I'm using Structural Integrity Collapse, so this will proc your deflector. Directed Energy Modulation will also proc your deflector. So all these abilities will proc the deflector. Most of the damage is actually going to come from your secondary deflector. It's pretty crazy how much radiation damage it will actually do in an instance. So that's actually just for funsies. Q for this and see if it'll come up. Again, the build works pretty well because you've got consoles like the Asymmetric Charge that are doing EPG damage for you, so it kind of makes up for the lack of science slots for the ship, for the Tier 6 multi-mission. Let's go blow up the crystalline entity. Why? Because we can. Go away. Ah, they're already there. They queued from ground. So, there's that. It's basically everything I'm throwing at this poor guy. It's gonna make his life not very fun. And an easy first place. Mop everyone up. So what's good about this build is I can still do, as you'll see, my beams are still doing decent damage. But I also still have lots of good psi abilities using. Sorry, so that's engineer, attack, and a science, just shown real quick. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up, either in the comments or on the fleet page. I'll post this on Discord, and maybe on the fleet website as well. I hope you all have a great day, and I better get back to this kid. Talk to you later.